So I'm just going to come right out and say it before I actually cover anything else today. What in the market god's world just happened this past week? Because wow, my portfolio certainly took a massive hit, plummeting from nearly $240,000 to its current value of $231,222. Of course, we can see that that was in the latter half of the week, the second half, as I'm sure many of you also experienced a hit, but it all came after Jerome Powell and the Federal Reserve gang came out to trim down interest rates, but also informed us that they're going to be stalling on future rate cuts well into 2025 because they're foreseeing now, or at least predicting, that inflation is actually going to shoot back up. Now, if you're nearing retirement, be cautious. But if you're anything like me, younger in your years with decades worth of time to go before you yourself actually find yourself in that retirement pasture, well, let this be your time to shine because you really should be loading up on stocks in focus like I've been doing this past week that I'm going to cover shortly for you. Or at the bare minimum, you should just be busy looking for ripe deals that can ultimately get you to financially where you want to be. Now, in addition to making some major buys this past week following all the market's panic and chaos, I also followed through on 2 sells within my portfolio. So I want to cover those 2 sells with you as well because I made some big promises. Now I'm following through. So I'm going to go ahead and just cover all the specifics of what I did this past week right after we take a deep dive in my portfolio, just so you know where I'm holding and what exactly I'm talking about when it comes to my portfolio and how it's constructed. With that, we're going to pop open Gitcoin, my portfolio tracker. By the way, link down there in the description. But here we go. We're going to go ahead and click on show more. And now we're going to see that 48.2% of my portfolio is invested into stocks, and trailing my individual holdings are my ETFs, which I personally have as my investment foundation. Those ETFs make up 46% of my portfolio. However, the biggest change for those of you who have been tuning in every single week with me, well, you're going to notice that that change is huge, and it's right here, this cash position that is no longer above $16,000 now, but just at $11,504. Why? Well, I have certainly been buying this whole past week. Now, expect this position to actually be replenished shortly because I'm going to be gearing up to make another big deposit soon. But with that, let's go a little bit deeper here and click into the sector breakdown where we're going to see that technology does in fact remain the clear front runner, again, keeping in mind that I'm a 30-year-old investor and just my whole investor profile is geared towards a younger investor, meaning I have more time in the market to be in growth. So 51% of my portfolio is there in tech before I tap into healthcare, which is going to make out about $30,000 worth of my portfolio, or just over 13.2%. Again, another huge change that I'm going to cover more in depth shortly. From healthcare, I get into consumer discretionary at 7.5% of my portfolio before I then tap into financials at 6%, followed by other that I'm going to pass over for now to get into industrials that make up about 4.9% of my portfolio, then consumer staples that total out to about another 4.9% of my portfolio. And perhaps this might be a glitch here, I'm not too sure, but financials coming in again at 3.1% of my portfolio, followed by the energy sector at 1.1% of my portfolio, and then utilities and materials both under 1% of my portfolio. Now, if you want to go even deeper, well, let's just go ahead and click into the positions tab here and get a full breakdown of my portfolio, totaling out to just 11 holdings as of this video, excluding the cash position. With the S&P 500, that is the largest position in my portfolio with over $55,000 invested into Vanguard's S&P fund, ticker symbol VOO. Then that is followed by the Vanguard Technology ETF, ticker symbol VGT, which is ideal for all of you who really want to take advantage of growth opportunities, but really don't fancy doing all of the due diligence on them. Well, at least that's my case. But this fund totals out to about $34,000 worth of my portfolio, meaning it makes up about 15% of it. Then we finally get into my individual holdings with Apple as my largest, coming in at nearly $30,000 or 12.6% of my portfolio. Next up, we have Alphabet. That totals out to about $25,000. And then one of my stocks in focus here that has seen tremendous growth this past week, coming in now well over $22,000 worth of capital, making up nearly 10% of my portfolio. From United Health, we then tap into a fund again here with the Total Stock Market Fund, ticker symbol VTI, that may get the boot sometime soon to consolidate it into VOO. Stay tuned for that. But next up, my cash position comes in again at $11,500 or so, followed by Tesla at 3.8% of my portfolio, Visa, which makes up another 3.4% of my portfolio, but a stock in focus, another non-dividend payer here with Amazon making up 2.7% of my portfolio, then Realty Income, which is honestly on the sell list for my portfolio, so just stay stay tuned, but right now it's at 2.5% of my portfolio before I top it all off with my position with Lockheed Martin. That will very likely see an influx of capital in soon. Now, again, for all of you who have been tracking all of my investment moves or tuning in here every single week, you'll have noticed some big changes, and perhaps you can already call out the two positions that I completely booted from my portfolio. The first position that I sold out of entirely this past week was McDonald's, which put roughly $1,800 back into my pocket to reallocate. Now, McDonald's is not a bad investment by any means, but I only had 6 shares worth of the company at this time, so I'm really focused on quality more than quantity with my portfolio, and I also booted the remaining shares of Coca-Cola. Now, those shares totaled out to $563, which was also put back in my pocket to reallocate. Just 9 shares, nothing big, meaning I went ahead to go on a bit of a buying spree once again this past week. If you were to ask me where I put all that money, well, I scattered it about, but the main position, of course, is the stock in focus, which is United Health, ticker symbol UNH. Of course, this healthcare juggernaut, from the antitrust lawsuits to Brian Thompson's death and now all of the heat for the denial rates. I'm just here saying that I think United Health will be, say, 2 to 5 to maybe even 10 years out from now in a much better position. Personally, I think we're just spooked by a lot of the near-term noise, and as we can see, United Health just continues to plummet to lower lows, meaning I'm going to be buying more and more, as again, long-term, I see that this is all just noise in the interim. All in all, this past week, I went ahead to buy another 8 shares worth United Health. That all totaled out to about $3,488, but that was certainly not all this past week. Given the major dip following the Federal Reserve's 2025 projections, I went ahead to score another 2 shares worth of Alphabet, which worked out to about $380. And I even then doubled down on both of my foundational positions with both the S&P 500 as well as Vanguard's tech ETF, buying 3 more shares worth of each fund. So $1,637 of VOO. As for VGT, another 3 shares that totaled out to $1,886, meaning this past week I spent a grand total of $8,037.13. And should the market keep tanking, just expect that as we close out 2025, yours truly is going to be here buying, so be sure you tune in on a week-to-week basis to know every single stock move that I'm making. However, investors, I want to know what you think of my portfolio and my purchases that I made this past week, so comment down below. Don't hold anything back. Also, let the community know what you've been up to as the market has been tanking. Have you been buying or selling? Let us know down there in the comments. Be sure to tune in right here to catch the 3 stocks of mine that are really in focus for 2025. Subscribe to join my journey, and I'll catch you all in the next one.